I can't remember whether it was the last clock I did or the one before that. I happened to mention that because everything's the opposite way round, I think it was Andreas Huber, Huber, and I said I seem to remember a Keinzle clock being the same. Well, lo and behold, I have a Keinzle, slightly different base, but it's more or less the same movement. Everything's the wrong way round, except it's got a mixture of solid and lantern pinions. There's a lantern pinion, there's a solid pinion, and it's got pin pallet escapement. It's whereas the other one had a solid pallet. I mean, this is solid, you can't move it or anything, but it's pins rather than a proper anchor. This one wouldn't run. It had a couple of broken teeth there, which I've done, but also there was no end shake between the plates. This was just solid, so although it wasn't binding, it didn't help it run freely. So I've got to take it apart and just take a minute bit off here, just so it has a little bit of end shake, but I haven't shown it taking it apart because they're all pretty much the same. And if you look at the Andreas Huber that I just done, you'll see it's more or less identical. I'll get set up for I'll take this arbor out of here and get set up for turning a bit off it. When taking a bit off to give you a bit extra end shake, make sure you do the right one. That's for the internal, that's for the external, between plate and plate. And you've also got to be careful that you don't do the wrong end, because if you take a bit off the wrong end, it could allow the barrel or the arbor to move up and hit something else. So you must make sure you've got plenty of clearance. Before you it's not very tight, is it? Before you take any meat off. Not very smooth, but then I've only got to take a little bit off, so that's even worse. About as good as I'm going to get it. And all I'm doing is taking a small amount off the end there, just so there's a bit of extra end shake. So now you can see we have a bit of end shake. Which is what you've got to have on every arbor. And you also have to have a bit of end shake inside the barrel. Not a lot, but just a little bit. Nothing must be tight. When you're refitting the centre arbor, this gear has to be a press fit onto the shaft, and the easiest way I found of doing it is like that. So that goes on that way round, that goes on that way round. It's a bit of a job to do because you got rolled half a dozen things. That goes on that way round. Just tap it down gently, to being aware that it doesn't go right the way down. You have to have a little bit of movement on it, and it would help if I put it in the right hole, wouldn't it? When you're putting this gear on the centre arbor, I just put a stake in there with a hole in, which is just big enough to take the pivot and hold it square. Bit of hollow tube and just tap it down, but make sure there's enough clearance between the plate and the gear, so you've got a little bit of end shake, not a lot, you don't need a lot, and then put the plate on to make sure it let me move that out of the way, make sure it all lines up and fits properly, and you've got a bit of end shake there, which you have, and it spins nice and freely. You don't have to take this off, but I always tend to do it because make sure it's clean in there then, and then it's just a matter of putting everything back together, and I'll get tidied up. We'll sort that out in a minute.